What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. We've started making some videos again. So today I'm going to be going over how to have the perfect start in any match as the commander role. Okay, one of the biggest issues I'm seeing with a lot of new players, which is great, we love to see that, is that a lot of matches are being very roughly played as the commander, and a lot of it has to do with understanding the maps, where to build your garrisons and things like that. So I wanted to go over a brief video. This one's not going to be too long. I am going to be making a full commander guide soon, which when that comes out I'll put the link in the description. But for today I just wanted to do a quick video on how to have the perfect start as a commander in Hell Let Loose in any match. So you can kind of follow this kind of a template that I'm going to give you guys in order to make sure that you're starting the match off properly to have a fair shot at actually winning and enjoying the game, rather than having one team absolutely dominate the other and it turning into an absolute steamroll. So we're going to get into this here. Alright, so we've got a fresh match here. I've joined an empty server just to show you the tactics and then explain what my process is. So I log into the server. I'm spawning in at the middle HQ. You always want to spawn at the middle so you can get the first supply truck. And you see right there, the first supply truck, you can tell it's a supply truck versus a transport because it has that cover on the top of it. Supply trucks always have that covered, I don't know what that's called. The rear part of the truck has a tarp over it. But I'm going to start driving up to the front line as quickly as possible and position myself in order to start placing garrisons. I'm looking at the map, so the middle point here is Chapel, and I want to build my garrisons, launch garrisons at the start along the edge of the blue zone. So the edge of the blue zone, that's that E line up and down, north-south line, the E line there. So I'm putting marks on the map of where I'm going to be placing some of my starter garrisons, okay? Now keep in mind, the start garrisons, they're not always going to last the entire match. Garrisons are not designed to survive for 90 minutes. So don't be surprised if these get taken down at some point or other, but these are just going to be in position to get my troops into the midpoint as quickly and efficiently as possible at the very beginning of the match, okay? Now, at the 1 minute and 30-second cooldown mark, you're able to spawn your first supply truck, okay? Now, I spawn a supply truck opposite the map of our other points. So you see we have the middle point in the middle, we've got the drowned fields at the bottom and flooded houses in the middle. So I'm going to spawn the supply truck at the top, up there in the north, and I'm actually going to type out in the chat that there's a supply truck top HQ for nodes, okay? I like to do that so that the engineers have a way to spawn in and build me some nodes so I can get some extra resources. And then, perfect timing, as we hit the 1 minute mark, you can actually drop your first supply drop. So I'm actually going to drop my first supply drop up here. Okay, so I have 2 supply crates. You can see in the bottom right, there's 2 supply crates in your supply truck for every refill that you do. So I'm going to use those 2 to build 2 garrisons, and I'm going to use the supply drop to build my 3rd launch garrison, which is going to establish a really strong front line that our troops can deploy from. So as we wait for the countdown here, this is really important because at the beginning of the match, you want to have your troops get into the midpoint as quickly as possible and take as much ground as quickly as possible, because at the start of each match, nobody really controls any of the territory, so it's open real estate, really. So you want to grab as much land as you can before the enemy does, so that you can control where your troops are coming from. One of my command mentors, Inshan, he's the leader of the Esprit de Corps competitive servers in the Discord group. He says to think about garrisons and playing command as basically like a tower defense. Where I build my garrisons, there's going to be blueberries and random people spawning from that and charging forward. So I want to build them in a place that's going to set them up to run into, you know, points of interest, strong points and stuff like that. So as we're driving along the map here, we're going to approach some terrain here. So you want to be careful when you're driving. Don't always just have your map open, because you may run into something like that where we just crossed over a river there. I luckily knew where a good spot to cross was. Now, we're approaching the first spot here, so I'm going to go ahead and drop the supplies. Okay, and I'm going to jump out and pull out the stopwatch, and then hold right click and then left click, and that's going to place the actual garrison. Okay, now I'm going to jump right back into the truck. As you can see here, it's a little bit exposed. It's not the best point to best location to build a garrison in terms of like defensive stuff, but again, this is the very start of the match. I want to get my troops deployed into the midpoint as quickly as possible. And now my cooldown has came off for my supply drop, so I'm dropping another one. This is where you can get kind of a variant. You can either, if my troops are already starting to capture the chapel, I may actually drop the second supply drop in the midpoint so that they can get a defensive garrison set up. But I'm approaching the second spot here. I'm dropping the supplies, and then I'm going to run back here to some cover. Now, the nice thing about your supplies, they do have a little icon that you could see there, and you know you're within 50 meters and you're able to build as long as you can still see that icon. So there we go, we get the green, there we go. That might be yellow, I don't know, I'm colorblind, but here we go. Okay, now we've got that second garrison up, people can spawn from there, and we're going to get back in the truck and drive up to our third location, which is up in the north. Now sometimes, again, I'm playing on an empty server just to show you guys this concept. Sometimes on the airdrop, I may have a squad leader that's gone there, but at this time, the other team is going to be starting to flood into the main point as well. So I'm going to do a recon plane over the enemy's front line, the edge of the red zone, okay? Not the neutral territory as much because we know nobody controls that, but they're going to be doing the same thing and building their garrison. So I'm going to send the recon plane. Here's another river that I'm careful about. You want to take it at an angle so I don't get stuck in there. There we go. Okay, and we've kind of arrived, and you can see there, we've arrived at the other supply drop location that I airdropped. That's what it looks like on the ground right there. Now, they do have to be 200 meters apart, so you see I'm too close, which you can tell you're 200 meters apart, one, by the outline, the blueprint of the garrison turning, I think it's green. Again, I'm colorblind, but there you go. Now I'm able to build it. Or you can tell how far you are from the other garrisons, because 200 meters is about exactly, actually it's exactly 1 grid square. Okay, so if you see all the grid squares on this map here, 200 meters is directly across 1 square. So if I'm about a square away from the other garrisons, I'll be able to place my other one there. But what I was saying earlier, now I've used the first supply drop, I've used my 2 truck crates, so now I'm going to go back to the HQ and resupply my truck. Okay, but in the meantime, I had dropped another supply drop on Flooded House, okay? But I'm going to drop another one on Drowned Fields here. Okay, that second supply drop, the airdrop one, I will either put it on the first point or sometimes on the midpoint, depending on if we're capping. If we're capturing the middle point, the chapel in this scenario, I would drop it somewhere maybe on the north in those buildings in like E4, F4. Otherwise, if the enemy is already taking control of chapel, then you want to start building further back. In this case, I'm taking a more, I don't know, defensive stance, I guess you could say. So here we're pulling up to that airdrop now on Flooded House. You can see the supply drop there. So I'm going to get into some cover. Again, this is just a quick example. I'm not finding the best locations. I'm just kind of slapping it down so we have something to see there. Jumping back in the truck, Blitzkrieg, let's go. Alright, now taking this back to the HQ to resupply. But looking at the map here, we've got, as you can see, a few different options for our team to spawn from, okay? So this is how you want to start your matches as a commander, because if you only build 1 garrison and your entire team is coming from 1 spot, it's going to possibly back yourself into a corner where if the enemy team starts to win the gunfight and kill your players, they're going to start to figure out where your players are coming from. If it's only from 1 location, that makes it very easy to counter and actually go and take out that spawn point for your friendly forces. But if you have multiple locations, it's harder for enemies to determine where people are coming from. And like I said, it establishes a nice strong front line there. But as you can see on the map here, I've dropped another supply drop down on Drowned Fields. That would be our next defensive point in case we don't take Chapel, and we only have technically 1 garrison in that area, and it's the one that's kind of exposed on the front line. Now, I did drop that other supply drop there, but I don't like that it's in the middle of the point. It's very predictable. Okay, I don't like to build garrisons in the actual center of the strong point because it's very predictable, and if the enemy commander decides to use one bombing run and it takes out that middle garrison, then you're SOL. Okay, so it's always good to have your garrisons spread out around your point rather than directly in the middle of the point, because one, like I said, it's easy to take out, and once it's taken out, everything else is at least 200 meters away. But two is, if you have it around your point rather than in the point, it's much easier to defend from multiple angles rather than spawning in the middle and just getting surrounded. I see too many commanders just building one garrison in the middle of the point, and then the entire team just gets surrounded, and it's just a slow bleed until the enemy surrounds and actually eventually crushes you. So you want to keep your forces from getting surrounded by having a nice strong front line and having multiple angles to approach any kind of objective or strong point. That is the key. Multiple angles, multiple spawn positions. That's the key to having map control and really a better experience in general on Hell Let Loose. You know, this goes, I'm playing this as a command role for right now because I wanted to show you guys the role of the commander, but you know, this can also go for squad leaders as well. Now the difference is the squad leader obviously isn't going to have all of the commander abilities and skills that are on the right side of the map. But what you can do as a squad leader is you can also have your squad members switch off from the support role, and all they have to do is drop a box of 50 supplies, and you can build a garrison anywhere in the blue with just 50 supplies. Okay, so now looking at the map here, we've got a very strong front line to launch into the chapel. And we've also got nice fallback positions. I'm going to send another recon plane, role-playing here as if we have enemies pouring in from their front line. So our team, what you want to see on the recon is basically like a trail of ants. Okay, if you see a line of red dots that's trickling in, okay, trickling into the point, you can kind of tell, oh, okay, they're all coming from this one spot. That's most likely where their garrison or outposts are coming from. There, you can kind of trace their spawns to where they're at, which is why, again, having just one spawn is not a great idea, because it's very easy to catch one recon plane, or you know, a solid infantry squad can easily detect where people are coming from. So having multiple positions, multiple angles is going to make sure that, you know, no matter what, even if one of those garrisons goes down, we also have other options to choose from. Now that I've had a solid defense set up, I can start to think about attack. Okay, as a commander, the biggest mistake I see people making is focusing too much on the attack before they set up a solid defense. Okay, there's the old saying, a best defense is good offense. In this case, not true. Okay, commander is really a defensive, really it's a supportive role. I like playing support roles in other games like Battlefield and stuff like that. So if you like support, command might actually be a hidden class that you haven't tried yet. That's actually really, really awesome. But as the commander, I know I'm doing really well at the end of the match if I have 0 attack points and all defense points. You never want to be in the red zone, really. Well, I don't want to say never, but you rarely want to be in the red zone as a commander. You always want to be operating in the very far back lines. You will experience combat, and what I mean by that is the people that you'll be fighting as a commander is not on the front lines. What you'll be fighting is the enemy recon teams. Okay, if the enemy's recon teams are very solid, they'll be in your back lines and they'll be attacking your garrisons and stuff like that. But now I've spawned, you know, some supplies up in the north and airhead in the south. We can start to think about attacking the next point, and that is how to have the perfect start as a commander. So thanks guys, hope you enjoyed. If you learned something, leave a like, leave a comment, like the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like I said, I'll be doing more videos in the future with a full command guide as well. So hope you guys enjoyed and learned something and implement that in your games. Thanks.
There we go. They're not aware. Wow. Hey, yo, tell me what's good. Come on, baby, what's good?
No, I'm sorry. Holy I killed like 6 dudes.
Look at your nose, and you find out the murder she wrote. Baby, that's how it goes.